Plan Commission meeting is called to order. Please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. There are a couple of seats up here in the front row if anybody would like to occupy them. It's going to get tired standing back there. First item of business, roll call. Jackie, let the record show everyone is here, except Chairman Michael Rugy. Next item of business is approval of the April 24th, 2024 regular meeting minutes. Does anybody have any corrections to the minutes as been submitted?
No, sorry.
Move that be approved.
You have a second?
I second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. First up is the McCamish-Melloza plan of lots, minor subdivision. Is there somebody here representing the subdivision?
How's it going?
Please state your name.
Dennis the Amico with Gateway Engineers. I'm here with Mr. McCamish.
And I'm Robert Garvin. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Goldberg, Kamen and Garvin. I'm here with Stephen Melloza.
Get all that, Jackie? Can you speak up?
In the future, come up to the mic so we can hear you.
Go ahead.
Do you want to repeat?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm Robert Garvin. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Goldberg, Kamen and Garvin. Represent Stephen Melloza.
Do I need to go again? Did you get my name?
Tap the mic, please.
It is, just gotta hold
Make
up.
sure it's up here.
Okay,
Thank you.
sorry. Dennis the Amico with Gateway Engineers with Mr. McCamish.
I'll put the mic back down. David McCamish. I'm Steve Melloza.
So we're presenting a simple lot subdivision, just a revision, lot line revision plan to the current. There are two plans associated with this originally. We're just adjusting the rear lot line revision plan, and it's a land swap. We're then, Mr. McCamish is giving land to lot 103 and lot 102, and lot 100 is gonna be part of the lot line revision.
Why are we here? Why are we doing this?
Let me answer that.
Yeah, go ahead. Oops, sorry.
I've probably lived at this property for close to 30 years, between 25 and 30 years. And the way the topography is, at the top of the hill is all flat, which is where my yard and house is. And I've been taking care of it and cutting it forever. And as I'm getting older and not sure what my future is with that property, I thought it would be good to try to clean up, because we learned where the property line was a little different. So Steve and I agreed that I could take a little triangle of the flat stuff, and then where the hill is down lower towards his property, he'll get that. So it was kind of it's all buried between the two properties, just a little swap of a triangle each way.
Okay, so, you built the shed on Melloza's property originally. Is that correct?
That is correct. I would say that none of us knew where the property line was. We were all kind of misinformed where we thought it was, and never knew it until I don't know, was it 5 years ago or 7 years ago when we subdivided it. And we subdivided it because I had a child that was going to build up there, and then that fell through, and live somewhere else.
Well, the only thing I'll say is if you would have submitted a permit for that, and I'd want to have a discussion with you further outside here in my office. If you applied for a permit for that, that permit would have been granted. Because you were on somebody else's property, I would have been able to tell you that. I mean, you would have pointed to the area you wanted to put the garage.
Yeah, I certainly don't dispute that. Where
We'll discuss
I
that
was
later.
informed the property line was not where it is. And we didn't pay for a survey, so, yeah.
And you have any comments from you?
Sure. Having said all that, so we did have an opportunity to look at the plan, the preliminary and final subdivision plan. It was submitted to us on May 8th by Gateway Engineers. And again, it is a simple lot line revision, taking property from lot 100 and redistributing it basically to lot 103 in the next step. But a couple things, if you could help me out with. Did you receive my letter already?
Yes, I have it right here.
And I don't know how many of these changes you already made or not, but, just some clerical things is that, the spelling of, Stephen versus Stephen, just figure out which.
I fixed, yeah.
Which Stephen I'm dealing with, just for fun. So one of the things that I guess I was a little bit curious about, because we did review your initial one, way back when, but the Highlander Drive that comes up, just one of the things out of curiosity, does that, easement for that private road extend through the, David McCamer's property? Does it go all the way down?
The ingress and egress for the
Yeah.
Highlander, yeah.
Interesting. So, really, and is that the access way of getting into that particular lot, 100?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. If you can show for me, is there a water line that goes up? What's the name of the private road that, with the cul-de-sac that goes to 103? Is there a name for this? No, it's not by Tunis Drive. Is there like a name of this road that goes up?
Is there a name of the road?
Foxheart?
So there is there is a name to the private road?
Yes.
Okay.
Same.
Is there any utilities that go up Fox? Did you say Foxtrot?
Foxheart.
Foxheart? Is there any, utilities that go up Foxheart?
I have water line that goes up here and a gas line
And
that service my house.
Foxheart Drop Lane?
Foxheart Lane.
Lane. If you could just show that on the drawings too, when you get a
Okay.
chance.
Yep.
And the size of that water line, just out of curiosity?
It's 2-inch and then it goes down to 1 inch.
Thank you. Is there any additional natural or artificial features that would impact this subdivision that we need to know about? Okay. In the municipal covenants, if you can just remove the word "and" from the municipal engineer certification, and it should read, "I certify that this plan meets all the engineering requirements for me." Thank you. The next thing is that in the disclaimer, if you could make sure that in that paragraph, or archaeological sites get added into that little paragraph, that was missing from that.
Yeah.
As far as the third-party permits, I don't believe any are required for this particular
No.
subdivision. Did you ever get an HLP for Foxheart Lane?
I'm not sure what's an HLP.
Oh, occupancy permit.
Sorry for that. If you do have one, I'd like to just see it for my records, if you would.
It's an existing.
It's
I was-
It's an existing.
It's an existing lane already,
Right.
and it's on a joiner.
Well, I can tell you that it was part of my original review comments from the one that was done probably, 5 years ago? And I'm not sure if I have it or not, that's the only reason I was asking. And it's just there to keep my records complete, that's all. Because at some point in time, I know somebody's gonna want us to re-subdivide this business. As far as the street sign goes, I was told by, the township that the township actually puts those in, so do you have a street
Yes.
sign at the entrance?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And there is also Highlander Drive.
And if you could just show me where the nearest hydrant is on Dorsey Boulevard. that concludes my comments on it. Our recommendation was to approve this subdivision contingent upon my letter dated May 16th, 2024, for consideration at the next supervisors meeting on June.
It'll be in 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
June 10th, I think, or 12th.
Jeff, any other comments?
I have none.
Any comments from the audience on this plan? Oh, you're all here to talk about it.
No, this one. Mine's better than yours.
Hi, I'm Tim Kirby, and this is Brad Gother.
What are you trying to do?
Well, we are doing a lot line adjustment that will mutually benefit both of us as neighbors. In one part, I'm currently accessing Wagon Wheel Lane and Indian Ore Road via an easement right-of-way that crosses the eastern end of Gouthier's property. And we had talked about my desire to purchase the land underneath the right-of-way so that I would own the land beneath the driveway. And Brad had expressed an interest in obtaining some of the property on its lot E190 in the depot, where our driveway goes through to Wagon Wheel Lane.
Engineer, comments?
Sure. So we had the opportunity to, again, review the Kirby Gothier lot line revision from plans that were originally submitted to us on May 17th, 2024. So this is a really unique subdivision plan for me, only because having been your engineer now for close to 40 years, I had the opportunity to work on Wagon Wheel Lane many times, which is a private road also. And it was a private road that was in existence before me, believe it or not. So at the end of this lane, I always thought that the property was always owned by Overbeck, but obviously you guys have pieces of it in the end. So I guess I need a little bit of house cleaning on this one too. So according to the Allegheny County tax maps, as well as my original drawings that are dated back in the 40s, there was a right-of-way that went down Wagon Wheel Lane and across the property owned by Gunther. I'm sorry, Guthier?
It's Gothier, yeah.
Gothier, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll probably screw that up 3 more times here, but.
Is he
thank you.
talking about the back section back here?
And then go back up there.
Oh, you're
Now,
talking about over.
on the drawings that were submitted to us by Hampton Tech, it looks like that right-of-way is now missing. So I asked somebody to research it just to find out whether my information is wrong, which it could be, or just kind of got lost in the sauce. Because there is what appears to be an existing right-of-way to the property. And that's what gives you permission to access that property. So is the right-of-way there or not there?
I'd have to get a hold of Frankie Overbeck.
Okay,
Well, I can tell you on
I got.
on the deed for lot E190, which gave us access to Wagon Wheel Lane, the deed does reference a 25-foot right-of-way. It says including access to a 50-foot right-of-way adjacent to the property. I have never seen the original document that created that right away, so, but it is referenced on the deed for E190.
Yeah, I'm sure this is a really oldie but goodie. It's one of those things where you go back to the 12-inch diameter old oak tree and take a left, that type of stuff. And now that the tree is a 21-inch diameter and everything's screwed up in the world. But if you could just research just to make sure that right of way either exists or doesn't exist. And the only reason why is because as per the last subdivision plan that we just got, where you don't know where everything is in the world, I'd hate to see you build something on top of it or something like that.
We're not allowed.
Well, you have to show me where it is first, so I know.
I got ya.
Okay, so that's one of those little things you need to take care of for me. The second one is the information, at least that I have, shows that Wagon Wheel Lane ends short of your properties. So your engineer is showing me a 50-foot right-of-way that goes down to the Gothier property, but I'm not sure if that exists. So just give me some information that either shows it or doesn't show it. It really doesn't matter that much to me in the big scheme of things because of that 25-foot easement that I think predates everything. So I just wanna make sure that what we're approving is correct. So just to kind of go down through my letter, is the total plan area that's in your table doesn't match the sum of the 3 lots. So just make sure that they add them up appropriately and get the right number at the bottom. Proposed lot 1, the total area doesn't match the sum of existing parcels 178 and the proposed transfer of the area, and the sum of the proposed transfer areas doesn't match the existing. So just get the table right for me is what I'm kind of getting to there. Also in your title block, just give me the correct revision date in that block, so that I know when things are divided, and whoever takes my place will, when they grab this set of drawings, they know when it was done.
You're talking about the lot drawing.
Well, in this revision block here, just make sure he puts in the correct date as to when that was done. So the minimum yard setback is not met for the house that's on that property. Now, that's what we would call a pre-existing situation, where the house was probably there when the lot line was put there. So,
26.
but just for the record, it doesn't meet the side yard setback, but that is grandfathered in. Revise the access easement for lot 1, label it to access easement for lot 2, just to again, get the nomenclature correct. In your block here for what type of utilities you have, I think it shows that your sewage is from Deer Creek Drainage Basin Authority, and actually you guys have septic tanks, right?
Correct.
So make sure that they put septic tanks there and get rid of that. On the plans itself, I'm gonna need the signature and seal of your engineer on these plans so that I have some professional putting their license on the line for this thing. In the reporting covenants, change council to board of supervisors in the municipal declaration. And we've already talked about the access easement proposed for lot 2. And we've already talked about the right-of-way going across there. In our Saldo ordinance, we always like to see very nice, neat, rectangular shaped lots. But obviously, we live in the state of Pennsylvania where I don't think there's anything flat, contrary to what that other gentleman said. So as a result of this, what you're kind of showing at the end of the day is gonna be a horseshoe piece of property, which isn't to my liking. However, I know why you're doing it. What you want to do is, instead of having a access easement across the top, you want to physically own the property, which gives you that horseshoe look. My suggestion would be is to give him the property and just put an easement through there. But I'm not opposed to what you have here either, okay? But I just want to point out to my planning commission members that there is another way of playing the game here. And at the end of the day, I just need a digital copy of this and AutoCAD format. So our recommendation, again, he's got some homework to do on this one. But conceptually, I have no problem approving this, contingent upon my letter dated May 20th, 2024.
If I could add one more thing in, I talked to Mark Schmidt today, when Brad came to talk to me about this, the whole reason this is happening is because Mr. Kirby is getting a public water line off of Wagon Wheel Lane. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys.
Yeah, you're right. That's exactly what's going
So he needs to go through Gauthier's property
Yes.
to get to his well site where his plumbing starts to tap the water line into. That is not on the plan here at all, and I thought that was.
No,
very
I thought the same thing when I got these.
So I talked to Mark today and said.
Okay,
think
'cause
you
I thought
guys
the
have
same
to wait
thing.
On there, because you need to have protection.
Exactly.
So he's going to make that change tomorrow. So he'd like that as a condition of approval, that he's going to put the right of way on there for the water line.
That's for your benefit, certainly.
Yeah.
Yes.
And again, getting back to what I was saying before, is that piece of property that's on the Overbeck property. I'm sure that 25-foot access easement is there only for ingress and egress, and I'm not sure if it would be there for putting utilities. So if that's the reason that I'm now hearing,
It's actually, the water line's past that,
okay.
it's in my driveway. It
It's in-
would be,
okay.
where they
Just-
tap.
Just get your property data correct,
Okay,
because what you don't wanna do is make an investment, because those water lines aren't cheap.
I got it. I do them every day.
Yeah, you just don't wanna end up putting a water line on somebody else's property.
Sure. Well, that's.
So get your
Yeah.
ducks in a row, okay?
And as a separate project, we are working with an attorney to create the utilities easement. And the question came up with the attorney about the water line right away, so we will get clarity on that.
Okay. It was an interesting review.
Okay.
Talk about a trip down, Old Memory Lane there.
I'm not sure I'll remember all these things that I'm tasked to do.
Unfortunately, I think they're all embedded in my head still.
Okay. Well, we'll get through it.
Dan,
Yes, sir.
any plan commission members have any comments or questions?
The other question for Mr. Slagle. Dan, did you get a chance, I know it was only dropped on the dais tonight, did you get a chance to look at the May 22 letter from Hampton?
No.
Okay.
That's the one that was on our desk here?
Yeah. If you didn't get a chance to look at it, that's okay. I just think that addresses some of your concerns. I just didn't know how complete
No, I wasn't in my office today.
Okay,
I'll
okay.
bet you that came today, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mark is addressing the easement issue.
Okay, all right, fine.
Okay,
He
well, Mark and I,
mentions it in his letter.
Okay.
it'll be an interesting conversation tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay, so you think these can all be corrected before, in the next 3 weeks?
Well, I would turn it around the other way. Unless the planning commission has a problem with the shape of the we're gonna call it the horseshoe lot, I think it's worth bringing it back to the planning commission just for them to say we've met these. Secondly is that if their engineer certifies with their signature and seal that they actually do have access and they can put the water line where it's supposed to be, it really doesn't impact the township or myself professionally at this point, so I'm not sure if it's worth bringing it back, is my point. And if they don't have it done by the planning commission, whatever that, or the supervisors meeting, whatever that may be, they can always, there's enough time to go another month. But it's up to you guys, if you wanna have them bring it back, I'll be happy to look at it again.
Any other question? Any comments from the audience? I have a motion?
Motion to recommend approval, subject to satisfaction of all engineer and municipal zoning officer comments.
Along with the addition of the water line on the
Yep.
jugs.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Hey, thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Next item of business is old business. Request for zoning map amendment by MPF Management LLC.
I just assumed everyone was here for the subdivisions, but I guess you're here for this.
Notice I didn't mean with as much laughter.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Jake Polachek. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Marasek and Polachek. I'm here this evening on behalf of MPF Management, and they are seeking a request for a zoning amendment. We were here last month, and we talked about this matter, and we, at your request, we all wanted to take the month to take a look at some of the legal potential spot zoning issues, which we did. As you all recall, there are suitable properties in the township where our proposed project would be a permitted conditional use. But after meeting and discussing with township management, it made better sense, better beneficial sense for the township if we found a more suitable property that would be perhaps less offensive to nearby residences and those types of things. And that is why we're asking for this zoning amendment. We have done our legal research in the past month. We've sought advice of a third-party outside counsel, and we've shared that legal research with the township. I'm sure that Attorney Furman's firm has done quite a bit of research as well. And so I come here today to follow up on that issue of potential spot zoning. We think that the zoning amendment would be a beneficial thing for the township. And so we look forward to moving forward to answer any of your questions this evening.
You have a comment?
Yeah, so after the last meeting, and the presentation that you gave to the planning commission, where was your original site that you presented to the township?
The original site, which would have been permitted conditional use, is the U.S. Pellet Company, which is not very far up Route 910. But as we presented in our packet of exhibits last meeting, this is a place that's near residences. It's easily visible from the road, and it's entirely possible that it could be offensive to some members of your community. And so, having gone back to look for other more suitable locations that would be similar in character and reasonable for a rezoning, I think we found the best possible place in the township where the well will be outside of, no one will notice it.
Is your intended use at the original site a permitted conditional use or not?
Yes, yes it is.
So what you're saying is in accordance with the township ordinance, you could very well submit a site plan, put that there within the guidelines of the zoning and subdivision ordinance.
That is absolutely correct, and not only that, but if that location, it may be more offensive to your township residents, and if this other proposed location, which is very similar in character and suitable for rezoning, once rezoned, it will also be a permitted conditional use.
Okay, so the site that you're now looking at is along Route 910 from what I can see?
Correct.
And I don't know the name of the property, who owns it currently or not,
D&D
but-
Supply is the name of the current owner.
And why do you think that would be a better site, not with respect to the township? What's
For a
unique
variety of
about that
reasons.
site?
Route 19 would be suitable for the temporary traffic that would come with this development. It's adjacent to Buckeye Terminal, which is already a petroleum processing facility. It sits at least 50 yards down into the hillside from the road. I've been on the site several times. Someone driving by 910 wouldn't even know that there was a development down there. It's currently zoned for.
Close the spare new world, buddy.
It's currently zoned for.
Down close to the water.
You'll all get your chance to speak.
It's currently zoned for mixed office. And so we wouldn't be down zoning, we'd only be moving to the next least restrictive zoning, which is light industrial. It's honestly, it's useless property zoned as it is. No one could possibly really do anything down there other than this type of
So
structure.
the pad location would be how far off of Route 910?
Well, we haven't finalized those plans, and that would be for
Well, just
future
a ballpark
meetings.
there. Are we talking
I
50
could-
feet or 500 feet?
Oh,
Or 1,000?
500 feet,
At least 200 feet.
at least 200 feet, but
And what's the differential in elevation between the two?
at least 50 feet, at least, if not more. It-
Is it
it-
50,
well, we would
200, or
be-
500?
We would be able to satisfy township requirements to put a driveway in, but it would be far enough down the hill, you wouldn't see it from down there. I've walked the property, and I would invite anybody to walk the property and see that you would not be able to see what was going on at the bottom of this property.
Well, whether you can see it or not, and I don't know for sure, but it sounds like there's a question there. One of your points is that it's gonna be less visible in the area where you're currently permitted to put this in, is that right?
I will state with a good deal of certainty, no resident will be able to see this from their residential property.
How close is the nearest residence to this property, approximately to the well pad?
It would most likely be across the turnpike. Yeah.
Across the turnpike? Okay. And the other parcel that you're looking at, where's the closest residence?
Very close. There are neighboring developments, and in some of the photos we put in the packet, you can literally see in the background houses. So in a property that currently we could apply for a conditional use to do this, and it'd be a permitted use, it would be a benefit from the township to do it in this new proposed location.
So
There's
one
no
of the
doubt.
criteria in the current township ordinance is that the wellhead
But
would
Dan,
have.
Dan, wait a second. Can I feel compelled to interrupt here, and I apologize.
Yeah.
An oil and gas development is not before us
Sorry, is
tonight.
there any way to turn up the?
Oh, I'm sorry,
Speak into
yes,
your mic.
yeah.
Sorry, it's very
No,
hard to hear.
I apologize, I apologize.
Thank you.
An oil and gas development is not before us tonight.
Okay.
And I think it's inappropriate to go down this line of questioning, because, well, first of all, we're dealing with a zone change, a map change, right?
Yes, sir.
We're the planning commission, right? We're supposed to take a broad view, a planning view of requests like this. Ultimately, this request to change the zoning ordinance, the zoning map, will go to the supervisors. And they're gonna take into account everything that is said tonight, everything that comes out of Allegheny County, public testimony before a public hearing before the supervisors. The question before us and before the supervisors is whether that zoning map change makes any sense, looked at broadly for the township as a whole, and looked at broadly considering land use development generally in the township. So oil and gas is not in front of us tonight. We need to consider this in terms of the police power and the public welfare, and the applicant's proposal is only one thing to consider. Frankly, I'm not even sure it's the most important thing. I understand there's a lot of people here tonight, and you all have important things to say, and I do want to listen to you, but I want to make sure you understand. I am not taking a position tonight on oil and gas, because that's not in front of us. What's in front of us is a zone change, okay?
Agreed.
Now, I did visit the property, because you invited us to last week, or last meeting. There were some statements made at the last meeting that this is simply an extension of an existing industrial zone. I parked my car at your entrance, and I took a picture looking back across the turnpike. If you look at the township zoning map, which is two-dimensional and not to a particularly good scale, it appears that the industrial zone is right against this property. If you go out and stand in the field, as you can see from the photographs I took, because I'm looking at the industrial zone from your entrance, that's every bit of a quarter to a half a mile away, with the turnpike in between. So let's be clear about what's going on tonight. This is not an extension of an industrial zone. It's the creation of a new one, okay? Secondly, and thank you for allowing us to walk on the property, I did walk on it. And you were correct, it does have steep slopes on it. But I'm not an engineer, but I haven't been involved in projects that involve steep slopes. And I don't know that anybody who's qualified tonight can give us any testimony as to whether this property is developable or not because of those steep slopes.
We've
And-
actually-
No, let me finish.
Okay.
Particularly because I asked our township engineer what the township standards are. In Indiana Township, for good or bad, the rules are, if you can get an engineer to submit a geotechnical study and a report with her or his seal on it, that says it can be done safely, and Dan agrees with it, you can touch those slopes. We're not like some municipalities where they say, if it's more than 2-to-1, you can't touch it, more than 3-to-1, you can't touch it. So yes, there are steep slopes on this property. Might this still be a developable property? I don't know. Frankly, there are some flat places on this property, both up and down, that would make nice developable pieces. So let's backpedal a little bit on developability. But most importantly, if you look at the township zoning map, okay, and I wish we could project it on the screen, because I think this would be helpful. The areas that are in purple on this map are light industrial, okay?
Kevin, here's a bigger one.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure if that's gonna make a big difference.
I don't know if it's making a difference, but I appreciate it, Dan. The areas that are in purple are light industrial, okay? There's a lot of them on this map. The areas that are in baby blue are referred to as this property is currently office flex commercial. You'll see that the blue area where this property is located is the greatest bulk of that office flex commercial. There's a small, doesn't show up really well on this map, shows up better on this small one, frankly. There's a small piece of office flex commercial on Dorseyville Road near Hart's Run, the Bartolacci property, correct? Correct. And then the properties down at the bottom of Hart's Run and Saxonburg are office flex commercial. The point I'm making is that those latter two properties, the Bartolacci properties and the properties at the bottom of Hart's Run and Saxonburg, are pretty fully developed at this point. So in other words, if we eliminate a good part of what's in light blue on this map, we've effectively eliminated the office flex zone from this zoning map. And why is that important? It's important because these two districts are designed for two different things. The zoning code says that the office flex commercial is intended to promote professional office centers and commercial activity. The light industrial is to provide areas that allow greenways, commercial nurseries, horticultural activities, and light manufacturing activities. If you look at a list of permitted uses in the office flex commercial include assisted living, bank, business service, general retail activities, personal care home, restaurant, retail sales, and shopping center. None of those uses are allowed in the light industrial district. I would point out parenthetically that a conditional use allowed in the light industrial is a sexually oriented business. Now, the point I'm driving at is this. Nobody here, and I'm sure Jake's client will disagree with it, but that's fine. Nobody here can guarantee that there will ever be an oil and gas development on this property. Regulations change, the state and federal level. Financial conditions change, capitalization requirements change. Most importantly, as we all know, with oil and gas, markets change. So if we approach this that we are changing this zoning to allow this particular use, we are eliminating a substantial part of the property in this township that's zoned for office flex, and B, we are opening the door to that property being used for industrial uses as opposed to the office flex uses that I just read out. So, and I apologize to everybody who came and thought we were going to have an extensive discussion on oil and gas. I'm happy to sit here and listen if you want to. But again, that's really not in front of us tonight. What's in front of us is the wisdom or lack thereof of changing this particular zoning classification. So, Dan, I'm not sure where you want to go with this, but maybe in an effort to not have people stay out too late tonight, I think this ought to be tabled.
May I just add one thing, though, to your comment
Sure.
there? Because you did mention greenways. And if this property is rezoned and we purchase it, and a well is not allowed to be put there, and I can't promise this, in fact, you can't take it as a promise. But our position is with whatever residual properties left, we either intended to donate it to Emblington Park or to see if it was a good fit for the Deer Run ALT project. And I also wanted to ask if the commissioners would, and I don't know exactly what the point of order on this is, to strike our Exhibit 7 from last meeting. We had been in contact with ALT about this property. I did not realize when we attached their map to show how complimentary this property would be, that they had their logo on it. And we did not have permission to use their logo because in some way that could indicate that they endorsed our project. And so I don't know what the proper point of order to strike our Exhibit 7 from the packet that we had, because it has their logo on it.
Looks like it's Exhibit 6.
What's been submitted has been submitted, but certainly your testimony in the record that you didn't have authorization to put in ALT's logo, that ALT has contacted you, and they have not at any time supported or endorsed your project. You're making that statement that the project's not supported or endorsed by ALT. And I think that's your obligation under the record. I don't think there's anything we can do relative to what's already been submitted, made public. But
I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Well, absolutely.
But like I said, so Greenway is one of the uses it could be then. If this project doesn't move forward there, that's probably the only thing it's gonna be good for moving forward.
Well, again, we can't have contract zoning in Pennsylvania, so I appreciate the information, but I'm not sure it's binding or.
No, absolutely
not.
I understand.
Not really important to anybody in making up their mind. So anyway, if I can just finish, and Dan, this is entirely up to you how you want to proceed at this point, but I'd like to move that we table this for 60 days at least, or such longer time as may be needed to allow the applicant an opportunity to, one, submit formal geological and engineering studies by an independent Pennsylvania licensed engineer regarding the feasibility, physical and cost of developing the site, and two, market or similar studies from a licensed broker or appraiser opining on market trends in the areas for the uses allowed in the office flex district. In other words, I think it's important for us to know, A, whether this property is developable, and B, whether it's feasible for development under the current zoning. All such reports should be submitted at least 2 weeks before the meeting they're going to be presented at, and they should be made available to the public upon request. I don't want to have the public show up for a meeting with us having reports that they haven't had a chance to look at. I'd also ask that the authors of those reports attend the Planning Commission meeting to explain their findings and answer questions. Again, I don't mean to suggest that all of you in the audience, who I suspect are most concerned with oil and gas, don't have legitimate reasons to be here. I just think it's a little bit premature, and that we need to deal with the underlying zoning issues first. And if and when we get a conditional use application for an oil and gas development, we can deal with it then.
And may I just make a comment before any action is taken on that motion? We would respectfully request that there would be no tabling. We would prefer a vote, yes or no this evening. We believe it's quite clear from the law, there is virtually no chance that if this is rezoned, it'll be overturned. There's just no criteria that would have that be the case. So we would request an up or down vote tonight because we would like to move this project along and get to see the supervisors.
So Jake, I don't want to get into a legal argument with you, but did you review Allen Distributors versus West
Very
Pennsboro
clearly,
Township?
very clearly, completely different case. First of all, that case,
Well,
the
again,
petitioners.
before you.
Oh, okay.
That's all right, you've answered the question. so-
Okay.
He asked you if you read, you said you did. I mean, I think what Mr. McKeegan is saying is that the information you're presenting is not the kind of information that he can base it. He, for one, speaking as one person on planning commission, cannot base a recommendation for or against until you have provided him information to his questions relative to the office flex commercial, the viability of the site and what can be done there. And you've made representations about that, but he wants additional information. So
None of our opinion will change between now and next month, and that's again why we would
I'm
respectfully
not looking
ask
for,
for
I'm
an
not
up or
looking
down
for
vote.
opinions, I'm looking for facts
Well,
or reports.
And the information Ken is asking for is very, very relevant to our decision from a zoning standpoint. You want an up or down vote tonight? we need that information. It's completely
I
relevant.
guess maybe I'm a little unclear. I mean, this property's been for sale for a long time, nobody's done anything on it because I wouldn't mind to put an office down there. But that's so subjective, that's actually not what this rezoning request criteria would be. There are other properties suitable for us to ask to put a well pad on, which we could. This is just a better fit for the township, it's a benefit. The criteria is the welfare of the township. This is a better spot than the one that is currently zoned available to do it. So we could abandon that property and go back to the first property, but that really isn't to the benefit of the township. So that, again, that's why we're gonna ask for an up or down vote on rezoning this property this evening. And if it's just not in the cards, that's okay, but from a matter of law, if this is rezoned, it will not be overturned on appeal.
Well, let me be blunt. If you're asking for an up and down vote tonight, I don't have sufficient information, so I'm gonna vote no. And I would suspect that the supervisors are gonna be asking for the same sort of information, so I think all we're doing is maybe saving you some time. When you get to the supervisors, you'll be able to answer their questions, because I think they'll have the same questions we do.
Yeah, and I certainly, as another member here, would have the same questions and want to see the same information. I mean, we can't make a decision based on the fact that you're telling us that it wouldn't be overturned. I mean,
Actually, I think that's really the only criteria for you to consider. If you thought it was the right thing for the township to do, in your role,
If
in
we
your
decide it's the right
in
thing
your
for the
legislative
township,
role
right.
as the township, and you wanted to do that, because there is another parcel that's already permitted for this to happen that would be more offensive to the residents. This is a better spot, and that certainly, it's a textbook rezoning request. And that's really all we're doing, as you said, we're not here to talk about whether the drilling project can move forward. That would be months down the road. We're on step one, we're not even at first bait yet. We're already 2 strikes. No balls. And so, we need to move the project forward, and so if we need to know if this parcel is just not going to be rezoned, then we're simply gonna have to move on otherwise with the project.
And the hell with the people who live in Black Oak?
Yeah.
You guys don't give a crap about that. You don't.
If you wanna speak, what's your called on, you can come up and give your name, please.
This is blackmail, that's what it is.
He's damn right about that too.
Irv,
You got a lot of nerve using the word offensive.
Irv, if this was to be voted down tonight, it'd still go to the supervisors, they'd have to hold a public hearing,
Well, no, it would,
does it just end?
no, it would end up at the supervisor with a negative you're not deciding anything.
Right,
You're
right,
either,
right,
all right,
body.
right, just to be clear, right, you're either recommending that you think this proposed zone change should be granted, or you're recommending you think this proposed zone change could not be granted. So when you're talking about voting up or down, it's a recommendation. It gets to the board of supervisors, and when it gets to them, they'll either vote to schedule a public hearing, right? It's not automatically done. They'll have a public meeting, they'll either vote to schedule a public hearing on the topic, or they'll vote not to schedule a public hearing on the topic if they're not interested in pursuing it beyond that level. That's procedurally what will happen next. And if you table it, it'll stay here for another meeting, or however long you table it for, until the time comes where it would come back up. Or alternatively, the board of supervisors could schedule a public hearing on their own and then send it back to you to review, pending what happens. Those are the options.
It is important, Dan, or you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think I am.
Could
to
you speak in the
note that-
microphone,
I'm
please?
sorry. There are no time limits on a proposal such as this. This is not like a special exception or conditional use or variance where you have to have hearings within a certain period of time.
You are correct. I
Thank you.
need to correct you if you're not wrong. You're
Thank
correct.
you. So we're not under any time pressure to consider this.
Okay, I think you made a couple of good points there about the technical feasibility of developing it as office flex commercial, as well as the commercial viability, which needs to be explored. And if you're unwilling to give us that information, I think then we can only do one thing.
May I sidebar with my client before you vote?
Sure.
Thank you.
Is the public going to be able to give comment before any vote's
Yeah,
taken?
depending,
Yeah, we'll give you your time.
right, when they're gonna make a motion, so you know what's up on the agenda, and then people get a right to comment.
Thank you.
When does the
Can we
zoning
use this
board
time to
get-
talk?
When does why is I'm hearing about these two boards, but the zoning board, do they not have to go in front of them?
No.
Well,
No.
there's
The
not a-
township supervisors define the zoning map for the township. We have input into that, obviously.
Yeah, if they were looking for a variance or something, that would go before the zoning hearing board, but that's not what the.
Now, do they have to submit, excuse me, can
Can you
I?
step up to the microphone, please?
Yeah, my name is Steve Fine, I live on 110 Black Oak Drive. I've lived there for 30 years. If we're not gonna talk about oil and gas, I got a whole different diatribe against that one. But, couple questions, do they have to submit a traffic plan?
as
Cause I
part-
don't know, who lived here, who here
As-
lived
as
through
we
the,
saw, you-
well pad up on Miller or whatever that was?
Are you
With
asking
those
as
trucks
part-
crawling up the road at 6 miles an hour?
As part of the rezoning application, that's not something that comes up as part of the rezoning. As Mr. McKeegan was explaining, when they do the rezone, the zone is rezoned for whatever use would wanna come forward.
Okay.
There's no, for good, bad, or indifferent, there's no.
So quality of life never enters into
Well,
the picture.
The issue is not that, the issue.
The issue is damn well
Well,
quality of life
That's,
in every aspect.
that's the.
For us, for the trout in Deer Creek and everything
Mr.
else.
Fine, would you let the attorney give you his answer,
That's,
please?
the evaluation is all part of that, but the evaluation is not relative to a particular use. As Mr. McKeegan said, and he's correct, the evaluation for the board is this,
A valid legal use.
no, it's not at all, it's about, is this zoning change better for this zoning designation versus the old zoning designation? And all the factors they consider, including the health, safety, one.
Okay, now is the fact that he's threatening basically blackmail, legal blackmail, but blackmail nonetheless, have anything to do with how this all gets decided?
May I just respond? I don't.
No,
look at it that
because
way.
you know
I'm
what,
sorry.
you already made your intentions clear. Trust me, I've dealt with enough oily attorneys in my life, you know, I know blackmail when I see it. And it sure sounded like blackmail to me. So maybe you ought to take that into consideration, perhaps be offended by it.
Mr. Fine, the situation is this. There are certain types of businesses that the state allows.
Yeah.
And I know that we had a little bit of laughter when it was mentioned about sexually explicit businesses.
I would rather
That-
see a
that is-
massage
That is
parlor.
one of those, and it's, the only power that the township has is limiting where it can occur. But we
Okay.
have to allow it to be someplace. I mean, we could make zoning rules that said, we put in this area, but it has to be so far away from this, this, and this, which basically says you can't put anything there to begin with. Oil and gas is also one of those things that has to have a place in the township.
No, it doesn't.
It's-
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it
It
does.
does,
No,
it does,
what?
and it already does.
It already does. You got that one up there. It kept me awake for a year in the
But
middle of the
it's-
night.
What I'm saying, the zoning code allows it in certain zoning districts. It doesn't matter if you already have one or you have 10, it doesn't matter. Other townships in the past have gone to court over this and they've lost because they tried to eliminate it totally from their township.
And others have won.
No, I don't
Get a
think
better
so.
lawyer.
Well, the point is, the state law doesn't allow us to simply ban it.
Right.
It just doesn't.
And it's allowed usage in certain districts, they can pick any of those.
So you let this
property in
plague of
those
locusts
districts
into
and
our
put it in.
community. Fight them.
Well,
Somehow.
If, Mr. Fine, if I may.
No, they are locusts. They're gonna just suck the marrow out of this place and leave a lawyer behind to fight the rear guard.
I'm not commenting on oil and gas, but I do want to explain to you
Okay.
the process, okay?
Okay, I'll sit. You
No,
can-
I mean, I don't mind the dialogue. If someone comes forward with an oil and gas drilling application and it's in an industrial zone, under the township zoning ordinance, that is treated as a conditional use, okay? Now, in Pennsylvania, conditional uses are considered a form of permitted use. And they're a form of permitted use because it's not a use he can just walk into Jeff's office and get a permit and start it, okay? It's a use that requires public input before it's approved, and that input occurs at 2 stages. The Planning Commission for a recommendation, again, as Mr. Furman said, we don't decide anything, we just make recommendations, and before the supervisors. And the test for whether it gets approved, it's twofold. Number one, the applicant has to show that they meet all the criteria in the zoning code for the use. So Dan was mentioning, you know, it's gotta be X number of feet from a school, it's gotta be Y number of feet from a
Yeah,
church.
I
It
get that.
it has to have noise, you know, they've gotta tick all those boxes, because if they don't tick all those boxes, then they've gotta first go to the zoning board and get a variance, okay?
Okay.
Assuming they've ticked all the boxes, then the burden of proof shifts to people who object to the use to show why in a particular property the use should not be allowed, because it presents on that property a unique injury, a potential harm to the public health, safety, or welfare. Okay, so it's a two-step
Okay.
dance.
Now,
right?
is noise part of one of the boxes I gotta tick? Cause I'll never get through that one. I've lived through the
To
last
tell you
one.
the truth, it's certainly if nothing else, it's a public consideration that should be brought up. Dan, is there noise? I think there are
Yes,
noise
there
limits in the
is.
ordinance.
Yeah, cause it was like a
Yes.
B-29 warming up on a runway for a year.
So
I
the
couldn't
answer-
open my
So
back
the
door.
answer to your question is yes. They would have to show that their operation would not exceed whatever limits there are in the zoning ordinance for
60
noise.
decibels at the property line.
I'm sorry, Dan, what was that?
60 decibels.
60 decibels at the property line after construction is complete.
Okay.
That's the key.
At the very least, are there limits in terms of operational hours for the drilling? Instead of 24 hours a day? Are there any kind of limitations like that?
Well, being a conditional use, conditions can be put on it, but if there are conditions that would actually prohibit the process from going forward, the court would overturn those.
But again, getting back on track to what Kevin was talking about, right now you're kind of defining the specifics of fracking, which is, we're not at that stage yet.
Okay,
Okay,
all right.
I defer back to Kevin. which is
No,
the-
I just wanted to make sure you understood. what the
Okay, no,
process
I
was.
understand. Well, thank you for letting me speak. Appreciate it.
I think the applicant is just ready to respond to it.
Yes, yes, and in the chance we're able to rezone it, you'll have plenty of time to ask all of these questions as we try to ask for conditional uses. But I really do think that we'd like
Use
to.
the mic.
Oh, I'm so very sorry. I do believe that we would request to move forward with the vote this evening. We believe that the criteria for a request for zoning change is met. We believe actually it's to the benefit of the township. We believe that it's consistent with adjacent uses. We believe it's consistent with the comprehensive plan. And we think that if rezoned, this site will be much more suitable to the benefit and limit any burden on the residents that they might have concerns about if we move forward with a conditional use permit on other already zoned properties. So with that being said, we would ask for a vote this evening, please.
Thank you. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to make a comment?
You wanna make the
Before you do that,
motion first?
Mr. Taylor, I think you wanna make your vote so people know what they're, are they talking, is the motion that's pending a motion to table, is the because I believe there was a motion to table made, there wasn't a second. But I think, if the motion's to table for 60 days versus a motion to recommend, or a motion to recommend, it's gonna be a motion to recommend approval, or a motion to recommend a denial, I think it'll influence what the comments from the public might be, so I think you wanna make the motion, and then, before you vote, of course.
And
take
again,
public comment.
I would just mention, I don't know that anything will
Nobody can hear
change
you,
after.
you have to.
I'm so sorry. And again, I would just respond, I just don't know what we could do to change anything between now and the tabling. So again, we would just request to have a vote on our request for a zoning amendment this evening.
Dan, would you like me to reread the motion?
Yes, please.
Okay. I would move that we table this application for at least 60 days, or such longer time as may be needed to allow the applicant an opportunity to, 1, submit formal geotechnical and engineering studies by an independent Pennsylvania licensed engineer regarding the feasibility, both physical and cost, of developing the site. And 2, market or similar studies from a licensed broker or appraiser opining on market trends in the area for use as allowed in the office flex district, with all such reports to be submitted at least 2 weeks prior to the planning commission meeting where they would be presented, and with copies to be made available to the public upon request. I further move that the authors of those reports attend the planning commission meeting to explain their findings and answer questions.
Just a point of clarification, on the technical land, looking at technically from development as office flex commercial or as light industrial or?
Office flex commercial,
Okay.
given
Under the current zoning.
given the steep slopes that supposedly are there.
Just wanted to clarify that. Okay, do we have a second on that motion?
I will second the motion.
Now it's time for public comment. Please state your name and give us your address as well. Sure.
Yep, my name's Matt Bivaret.
Before you go forward, it's just a housekeeping, rule of order. Planning commissions, and obviously, due to the volume of people, they ask for a 5-minute time limit on comments, so. I'll let you
Understood.
know if
I
you
brought
get some.
prepared comments so that I wouldn't exceed time.
Okay, and please only address zoning change, not oil and
Understood.
gas.
Thank you. My name's Matt Bivaret, 102 Craigmore Court, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time, so I'll keep my comments brief. That's why I prepared them ahead of time. I'm new to the township. We bought our property in September. We liked that it was close to Emmerling Park and that the industrial activity was confined generally to the area below, between the Turnpike and State Route 910. So we're surprised to learn that MPF management was asking the Planning Commission to support rezoning the lot north of the Turnpike, very close to Emmerling Park, which sits less than 2,000 feet east of our home and very close to the schools that our daughter will attend as light industrial. I'm not sure how the commission could possibly recommend this change. The people who wrote the zoning ordinance recognize that a thriving and sustainable community, one that's also a nice place to live, needs all the elements represented by the different zoning classifications in the ordinance. To rezone this plot of land would deprive the community of what appears to be nearly half the space zoned as office flex. Quoting from the comprehensive plan, the OC district is designed to promote professional office centers and commercial activity. Thus, professional office centers, restaurants, retail sales, and the like are permitted uses in this district. There are only a few small parcels of OC district in the township. Given that office flex represents only 1.81% of total township property, I would like the commission to explain how this proposal makes sense. If the commission is contemplating a zoning change from office flex, I would like it to produce a report explaining what other zoning classifications it is considered besides light industrial. What criteria does the commission use to evaluate those alternatives? What are the benefits? What are the costs? And what are the risks that the commission has taken into consideration? When I look at the zoning map, it looks to me like whoever designed it envisioned 2 commercial districts, 2 commercial corridors in the township. One on Harts Run Road where it crosses Saxonburg, the other on State Route 910 where you can find some limited commercial activity in and around Emmerling Plaza. Since there are only 2 such corridors, because they are limited and because they are vital to the township, to rezone this lot makes a dramatic change to the vision of the township that is codified in the ordinance. Now, there were some discussions last month about whether this proposal constitutes spot zoning, and that issue was quickly dismissed by the representative for MPF management. I'm not a lawyer, but I am interested in legal analysis, so I Googled it. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court has defined spot zoning as a singling out of one lot for different treatment from that accorded to similar surrounding land, indistinguishable from it in character for the economic benefit or detriment of the owner. Spot zoning is the application of zoning to a specific parcel or parcels of land within a larger zoned area when rezoning it is usually at odds with the city's master plan and current zoning regulations. MPF management seeks to rezone a lot that is bordered to the south by a 6-lane highway that strategically separates residential lots, parks, and schools from industrial activity. It seeks to rezone only one lot, severing it from other office flex properties, completely changing the viability of this area as a commercial corridor. The argument that this plot of land is geographically isolated from residential areas is fallacious, and this commission knows it. There are at least 3 residential neighborhoods within a mile, and there will soon be another. The Blue Run development came before this body for approval in March of last year. Furthermore, to change the zoning of this property would economically benefit the owner of the property, D&D Supply, who I understand has been trying to sell it. It's ironic that a company with a large plot of land zoned and intended to be used for commercial real estate is trying to sell it in one of the worst commercial real estate markets in decades.
So you have 1 minute remaining.
Financial value that this lot has likely suffered as a result of the work from home trend that started during the pandemic and from high interest rates that make financing a potential project a challenge at this time. Rezoning this plot of land is akin to a bailout for a company that failed to manage its assets. A company that wants to sell but hasn't been getting very attractive offers due to the state of the commercial real estate market. In addition to creating economic benefit for the owner, changing the zoning classification imposes economic costs, health risks to the surrounding landowners, the people of the township, and those passing through it. The representative from MPF Management stated very clearly last month, if we can't rezone this property, we won't buy it. If that's not spot zoning, I don't know what is. This may be a bad market for commercial real estate, but that does not mean that this plot of land can't one day be developed under its existing zoning classification to the benefit of the community. Smart investors know that you can't time the market, and although the conditions may not be right at this very moment, this commission should not dismiss the potential perpetual economic value that this property has to the township in favor of what is otherwise likely to be one-time or temporary oil and gas tax revenues.
Thank you, sir. Your time.
Hi. My name's Vanessa Lynch, and I live at 3726 Saxonburg Boulevard. I oppose the proposal to rezone this area. In the spring of 2018, a large group of Indiana Township families became aware of the Miller Jr. well pad being permitted to frack near Emmerling Park. Stay with me. We reached out to our neighbors to see if they were supportive of updating our 2013 oil and gas ordinance to be more protective. With 900 petition signers, it became abundantly clear that Indiana Township residents believe protections were necessary, especially since the nature of our area is residential and fracking is a highly industrial process. The Board of Supervisors agreed to update the oil and gas ordinance and in the summer of 2019 adopted the revised standard. That ordinance relied heavily on the zoning map to create protections. The updated oil and gas ordinance was clearly legally defensible as no fracking companies have challenged it since its adoption. Indiana Township has already met its burden of the fair share of land use for fracking infrastructure with the Miller Jr. well pad. There's no threat of exclusionary zoning by denying this change. Even more clear, over the last 6 years, the Indiana Township Board of Supervisors has shown their intention for our township to be more residentially focused with the approval of over 550 new homes across our region. For these reasons, it's vital the township denies this request, avoids expanding the light industrial zone, and does not unnecessarily create more space for fracking. Of note, if MPF Management's claims are accurate as to having another property eligible for oil and gas development, there would be nothing to stop them from fracking on both that property and this current property other than a gentleman's agreement. Additionally, Allegheny Land Trust was contacted to understand more clearly their involvement in this project, and they issued the following statement, and I quote, We are aware of a proposal to establish a gas well extraction operation on a parcel of land that's adjacent to our Deer Creek
density residential zoning. On April 24th, the last Planning Commission meeting, Attorney Polachek categorically stated that the parcel in Deer Creek floodplain is the best location to place this well pad, and that it is uniquely suited and only for that very purpose and nothing else. Quite frankly, I don't believe that Attorney Polachek has demonstrated that case or can even demonstrate that case, that is the only use for that particular lot. And so, as you may surmise, I object to this proposal of rezoning. And lastly, also, I would,
So 1 minute remaining.
okay, I'm almost at my end. So rather than weakening the protections that we put into our zoning, and that the township and the residents work together so hard for, I request that we revisit some of the provisions in the ordinance 385, that are still left on the table to improve, and work on those instead of rezoning. And I have one particular one, there are several, and that is the setbacks that are woefully inadequate currently. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Adam Bird, 278 Hilltop Drive. I also own 288 Hilltop Drive and 2 properties in Indianola, so all within 2 miles of the site. So I've been here for 15 years. Preston, you welcomed me into the community. Appreciate that. Jeff worked with on several properties in the area, and I just want to say that there are 4 protected flowers and 4 protected bird species that live in Emerald Park. First one, my daughter, Freesia bird. Okay, she's 3 years old. Second daughter, cowbird. Third daughter, zinnia bird. Fourth daughter, azalea bird. We spent so much time in that park. If you ruin that park, it's over. I didn't even come here for this meeting. I came here to drop off the summer camp. Summer camp check to spend their entire day at Emerald Park all summer. You're not getting this check next year if you ruin that park. Listen to your customers. It's not the taxpayers, it's the kids.
Anyone else?
Yes.
Denise Schmidt, 1000 Old Mill Road. I have a procedural question. We were told to decide on just whether or not we should rezone or redistrict this plot of land. Yet at the beginning of this meeting, 2 private citizens stood in front of you wanting to do a simple plot change, swap a little bit of land. And the first question asked was, well, what is your intention for this land? Why are we not allowed to ask about the intention? But when you have private citizens trying to be good citizens and good neighbors, you're asking them about their intentions.
My name's Michael Quinn. I live at 111 Isley Road. I've been there 25 years. All you need to know about these guys is the little game they're playing with a smirk on his face. If you don't give us this one, we'll take that one. Mm-hmm. And what that one will do, too, you've got Black Oak neighborhood. That one won't even affect me as much as the one at Miller did, because I'm down the hill. I agree with Mr. Fine. We couldn't open our windows for a year. We got stuck in truck traffic for a year. It was ridiculous. But he says with a smirk on his face, we'll take that one. Think about the quality of life has been mentioned by a lot of people here. That kills quality of life for God knows how long if you live in that neighborhood. And by the way, you have a summer camp that runs in between 1,700 and 1,800 kids a year. He doesn't give a crap about that. He doesn't. All he cares about is his money. He doesn't care about one person that lives in this township. And he represents that company, so they feel the same way. You're a ghoul. That's what you are.
He's smirking because he's billing $400 an hour.
Hi, my name's Catherine Hauber. I live at 215 Scarborough. I just have a question. When you consider rezoning, do you then further do environmental studies? This has been brought up several times, or the impact to the community? Like they've all mentioned, and no one's brought this up too much, but you also have soccer fields, you have baseball fields here, you have them there, you have Founders Field down there, you have the communities left and right, us back here, and the new one. I mean, is any of that ever brought into consideration?
Because
Not at this point, but I'm saying further, like if.
When there's a land development application or a use proposed, depending on the particular type of use is where that could come up, right? And so it depends on what's submitted. For example, if it's just a standard permitted use somewhere, then they just apply and they would do that. If development, that comes before the public bodies and those kind of things are brought up.
Mhm.
If it's, it depends on if it's conditional use, those things are often addressed. But it depends on the particular use, and that's why, at this point, despite what's being said, if a zone change happens, it could be any of the uses listed within that district. When those come forward, that's when that's that stage procedurally when it gets addressed.
And I mean, this past history, as far as safety wise, I've been around here as long as you guys have too. Hurricane Ivan, that wreaked havoc with that field and flooded the halfway up that hillside down there. So how would that impact if that occurred again, if this thing was mounted down there next to the creek? I mean, that's a serious consideration because, storms are becoming more intense and much more, destructive. So something like that I couldn't believe it. I mean, you were all here. That knocked down the whole baseball backstop. It knocked down the soccer goals and dragged them, down the field.
Please limit your discussion to
So,
rezoning.
that's,
not
well, I'm
to-
just saying if any of that is brought up with rezoning was my concern, so, thank you.
Nettie Owens, 109 Bruno Drive. I actually just have a question on this one. The zoning map that you're showing, does that reflect the zoning change for the Blue Run development? Are you seeing the residential, medium density residential?
You'll have to show me where it is on this, I'm honestly
Sure.
not sure.
Because, that's gonna sort of change.
Not yet.
Not yet,
It's not been
okay.
updated, okay.
So what looks like, so what's here that's purple, light industrial has already, now instead of being next to light industrial, it's actually next to medium density residential. And so it really doesn't touch light industrial. That was my.
Aside from the fact that it's already got the turnpike between it, so. yeah.
Right, but anyways, my point is, this map's not correct, that you're using to
It's
base
just
a
not
decision
updated
on.
yet.
Yeah,
Well,
no, I understand that
Well,
point.
it, not being updated makes it currently incorrect.
The property you mentioned, Blue Run, does not impact on this request at all.
Right, but if there's it might be touching conversation, then it might not be touching.
My name's Carrie Katz. I live on 213 Scarborough Drive. Several years ago, Blue Run was straightened out because of the curves, and a lot of trees were taken down, and nothing was put back there. I sleep in my bedroom now with my window open, and I hear the turnpike. This is going to be on their side of the turnpike. I'm going to hear more noise now. So what was once quiet is no longer going to be quiet. It's not quiet now. It's going to be more noisy.
Any last comments?
Right here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I need some help.
Come up to the microphone, please.
I can't walk that far. Everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Give him help.
I'm holding a transcript here of Jay Whiteson from Camp Deer Creek. This says a concerned neighbor has been recording township meetings legally, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I have that in my hand. For me to address the situation properly, this took me these 16 pages from 11 o'clock to 2 o'clock this morning, and then all this time here. I need a copy, a real copy that you guys approved. Will I be able to get that? So that I can speak intelligently instead of saying.
You mean the minutes that they
The
approved?
minutes, yes.
Yes.
Oh,
They will
okay,
have the
great,
next
that's
one.
fantastic. One last question. When did you walk the property?
I remember the day very well. It was Saturday, May 11th. It was the.
May 11th?
Yep.
And how did you get there?
I drove up Route 910 and I parked in front of the gate. There's a gate that marks the sort of an old driveway that goes down the hill into the property.
I want to just very briefly approach the young fellow, what's his name, Mike.
Oh.
Someone yelled out blackmail. I don't see it as blackmail, I see it as quid pro quo. Something for something. And this smacks of it, like they're throwing sop out to you guys. How about we just make that, I walked over today, I'd had a heart attack.
I got out of the hospital yesterday, I gotta go again tomorrow. That's beautiful. For anybody to say that that can't be developed is asinine. It's ludicrous. How about the property next to it? That's the guy with the mythical guy that's up in the tree house. Did you see any tree hut where he's gonna shoot?
I wasn't looking for a tree
Okay,
house.
what did you see when you were down there that really took your breath away?
A very peaceful glen, if I can put it that way.
Right.
It looks like the remains of a garden were down there.
Yeah, that's not the property he's talking about. I wanna ask one question. Jake's under a time thing. I like to ask him what that is. What's the time factor you're under? I'll answer the question for you. Have you already bought the property? Say yes or no. Have you already bought the property everybody's arguing over?
Sir,
Yes?
Sir, the property is under contract.
There you go. There you go. And how long do you have to make your decision on the property before you get your money back, whatever you put down?
I'm not trying to give you a
Just
cute
tell me.
answer, that depends.
It
In these
depends?
types of land contracts, you could buy options, it
It's not a land
depends.
contract. You put money down. You signed an agreement with the realtor that gives you to October to make your decision. Is that true or not?
Unless additional options are purchased.
Just yes or no?
Unless additional options are purchased.
All right.
I love lawyers.
Thank you. Yeah.
But yes,
Well, if you walked over that, I walked over it today, as I said, it's beautiful. Why not, we're not worrying about light industrial and all that stuff, adding it to Emerald Park, which might, Jake said. On what side of Deer Creek, the one facing 910 or the one facing Emerald Park, are you gonna put your pad?
It would be off of 910, and the idea was to donate all of the excess
I'm
land
not worried
to the
about
park.
that.
Yeah.
The stream runs right.
Sir, you've
There's
one,
quite a way.
sir, you've 1 minute remaining.
Huh?
1 minute left. 1 minute
I'm
remaining.
gonna talk a little faster like this. All I'm asking is, where's the pad going to sit? On the 910 side
Yes.
of the creek?
Yes, sir.
The
On the
910
910 side?
Yes,
Not on the other side?
correct.
That's a little better, but I can put another mills on that property you think can't be developed. It should be bought by the township. Don't worry about how much money you're gonna make, light industry, and make that Emerald Park a beautiful site.
yes.
Beautiful. 509 acres of,
All these tax dollars.
Mr. Weitzel.
people in Black Oak.
Mr. Weitzel.
Yes.
Could you please, in
Who's calling?
3 weeks, would you go to the township supervisors meeting and make that comment to the supervisors
Well-
that they should buy the property? I mean, we can't do anything about that, okay?
I'll be
So
more
you can.
polished then.
Make a donation to the city to buy it, that's fine. You have to get set.
Black Oak has that in their mailbox.
Very nice.
All right, I'm sorry.
Okay, is there anyone else? Yes, sir.
Hi, Trevor Moore, 108 Blackwood Drive. First of all, the attorney said Emlenton Park. I looked it up. That's an hour and a half north. I'd be happy to drive you up for the day. We'll take a look at the property. You're in the wrong township for more than one reason, though. But in other words, I was once in your position. I served as the youth member, the high school student on the Parks and Rec Board for multiple years. And this was over a decade ago. And I can tell you, we did not have these type of conversations back then when I was serving. So, you know, I was once in your position. I was behind this desk. And I'm just asking you to please make the right decision. I'm hoping and praying that you'll make the right decisions for our community, just like I did over a decade ago. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mia Lynch. I live at 3726 Saxonburg Boulevard. I just wanted to say that I grew up going to Emerling Park every day. We would go to Emerling Ice Cream, Some of my first memories here revolve around this park. I mean, I would go to softball games, birthday parties, field trips, and I would just play in the park all the time. I mean, I believe that nearly every child in Indiana Township has done the same. And then we would all run up the hill to Emerald ice cream. And to imagine that all being destroyed just absolutely kills me. I mean, to think that children cannot freely and safely play in this township is horrifying. And to think that kids going to Hartwood Elementary and Dorseyville Middle School, where I went as a kid, is horrifying. To think that the beauty, safety, and comfort of our homes could be put in the hands of these people is horrifying. So, that's all I have to say.
You have a comment? Something we haven't heard already?
Yeah, actually,
Keep
although
it
you've heard, you've heard all the other
addressing
comments.
The zoning change has nothing to do with oil and gas. Just the
Okay.
zoning change.
You've heard all the other comments. Elisa Weiss, 134 Dennis Drive, Glenshaw. I suppose I'm posing a question, since there was some dialogue about the people who were, asking for particular actions on your part about the intentions for their use of property. And so there was you had said that, golly, there was a lot of discretion or questioning of the initial presenters here, and yet there wasn't a consideration in terms of the intention with oil and gas, and I understand your holding back on that. But I suppose I would be wondering if there is a consideration of this being used for oil and gas exploration, withdrawal. Are there other required functions to make such a process viable? In other words, it's not gonna be like a Dairy Queen where you make ice cream, people eat it, and then they go their way. And the garbage truck comes by and picks up the refuse. You don't have a gas well, and then it just stands there, and nothing happens, or they cart away the gas in tanker trucks. That kind, I don't think that's doable. In other words, is there a major build-out of infrastructure that is actually required to make this a functioning business proposition? And will there be a revisitation of opening more of the land to rezoning in order to allow the proper carrying on of that business?
You're addressing questions that have nothing to do with what the order of business, which is rezoning, has nothing to do with oil and gas, has nothing to do with rezoning other parcels at this time. We're addressing this one request.
Okay, will it anticipate a request for more rezoning is a consideration of backs of minds, and I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, we can't anticipate any future requests. I mean, someone could walk in tomorrow and ask to do a development on a piece of property. We don't know that's coming. We have no crystal ball. So we can't see about any other zoning requests either.
I'm just thinking in the back of mind, these are questions that, and considerations to think. Thanks.
And I'll just add, I wasn't sure of the first question. I thought maybe it was a rhetorical question, but, that you asked regarding why there were questions asked about the subdivisions. And that's because that's an actual use that's being defined in a request for a change, that's a plan that's actually before the board. So they can ask specific questions about what the intentions are and what's gonna be and why that all is. This is just a zone change. So we, again, as said, there's no idea or knowing what could possibly go there for real. They're saying one thing, but that's not binding on them or on anyone. So that's the difference, because one's an actual plan that's before the board of supervisors, while the other, there's nothing before them yet, other than the change, and whether the change is a good idea or a bad idea that was talked about at the beginning. So I'm sorry I didn't answer your question. I wasn't positive that it was, I thought it was just a rhetorical. So,
Okay, thank you.
AC control. A little too old for this warmer room.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. My name is Haig Sequoian. I live at 323 Blue Run Road in the Walnut Woods plan. It's about, my house is less than a half mile away from the proposed property. I'm also the president of the Walnut Woods Homeowners Association. I'm not speaking for the Homeowners Association. I'm speaking strictly for myself, but I'd like to point out that there are dozens and dozens and dozens of my neighbors in Walnut Woods plan, as well as many of my other neighbors from our sister neighborhoods, Heathergate and Heather Hills. I want to speak for my personal approval of the motion pending before the board right now to table this for 60 days for the applicant to provide us with the information that we need to make an informed decision as a township and a community on whether this property goes forward. I'd like to point out though, that we've heard a lot about benefits, about it being an element for whether or not the board should consider this. I, for one, haven't heard much that benefits us having an entrance a quarter mile away from this property and members of this township, how it will benefit us as neighbors. The only benefit that I've heard is that they will not develop another piece of property to have a well. It's the only benefit that we've heard. Now, that's not a real benefit. That's a false choice for us. There's nothing to stop someone else from coming in and developing that piece of property. An element is a benefit that it provides the township. Foreclosing on an opportunity to develop another piece of property is not a real benefit for us because someone else can come in and develop that. So when they come to us to try to present what will satisfy the elements and what we need to see as a polity to show why this property should be rezoned, they need to come forward with a real benefit, not a false choice. Thank you.
Anyone who would still like to speak with anything new that we haven't already heard 10 times?
Hi, my name is Christine Parise and I live at 16 Dunray Court in Heather Hills, which is again very, very close to the proposed site. I know you've asked us not to speak about oil and gas, but given the fact that we've just heard from their mouth that they're under contract for this property, these two things are they're not mutually exclusive. So forgive me if some of that enters into some of my remarks today. So first of all, as our community members have stated, back in 2018, the township supervisor supported the will of the Indiana Township citizens, and including 900 petitioners to tighten up zoning ordinances in our township. Since then, these tighter restrictions have encouraged an influx of residential developers to heavily invest in our community, adding new housing developments which encourage a long-term sustainable source of tax revenue that actually appreciates over time. And as a result, the Indiana Township property values have increased at a faster rate than the rest of the Fox Chapel area school district over the last few years. An unconventional gas development project at the proposed site would greatly detract from the progress the township has made by denigrating the land at the site for future development while posing significant health and safety risks for the growing nearby population. An overwhelming body of medical research has found that the closer someone lives to unconventional oil and gas facilities, the more likely they are to experience a range of health issues, from low birth weights, childhood cancers, asthma, migraines, fatigue, depression, and even decreased life expectancy. These studies have stated that these impacts are exacerbated, especially when inhabitants live within 1 mile of the site. As we know, within 1 mile of this site, there are several large established residential communities, such as my own, in one future development, 2 schools, a daycare center, a senior care facility, multiple businesses, a park where hundreds of families gather for children's sports and events every week, several churches, and a summer camp. Medical studies indicate that fracking has no place within 1 mile of human life when done responsibly. However, what we've seen in Western PA is that oil and gas companies have a track record of violations and cover-ups, which impose greater health risks to our community and nearby residences. So Range Resources, who I understand may or may not be involved in this development project, just citing them as one example, has proven that they can't be trusted to develop anywhere near human life. In a 2020 criminal investigation, it was found that Range Resources pleaded no contest to negligent oversight of well sites in Washington County, PA. The plea came after a 2-year grand jury investigation into environmental crimes committed by unconventional oil and gas companies across the Commonwealth. The investigation revealed that Range Resources knowingly covered up problems with their wastewater storage pond at the Jaeger well site. The company was aware of issues such as tears in the pond's lining, bacterial growth in the fracking water, and these problems ultimately affected nearby springs, making them unsafe for human consumption. Next was their 2017 settlement for contamination. The Range Resources and other defendants agreed to pay $3 million to settle a lawsuit with 3 Washington County families. The families alleged that the natural gas skilling company contaminated their properties and caused health issues. Next was the 2021 misclassification of wells, in which Range Resources was fined nearly $300,000 for misclassifying wells. While state law requires abandoned wells to be declared and plugged when they stop producing wells, Range Resources simply failed to comply with this regulation, irresponsibly abandoning the wells to the public detriment.
You're talking solely about oil and gas and not the zoning change.
My next space, I'm zipping, I'm going right back here. I'm within 5 seconds.
We'll let it go.
So my ask is that we do not change the zoning to light industrial within this area and honor the previous will of the residents that the supervisors have upheld based on our previous work that we've done in partnership with the township. We not put our community in the hands of oil and gas that have proven they cannot be trusted. And we continue to stand our ground, show that we have a backbone, and develop this community in the best interest for the future prosperity and health of our residents. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nathan Moore. I live on 108 Black Oak Drive. I'm sure we're all tired, stressed, and frustrated. I get it, I just got out of finals. But I don't want to repeat anything. I really just want to kind of provide a new perspective. Summer camp at the local park has been brought up a few times, and I just want to give some insight. I'm starting my 4th year at the summer camp as a counselor, so I kind of know the ins and outs of how it works, and I kind of just have 2 main concerns. The first being traffic. I don't know exactly where the line of oil and gas is. I don't want to cross that, but I feel like when you move from commercial to light industrial zoning, you're going to have heavier traffic anyway with bigger trucks. And there are many parents that come in for drop-off and pick-up every day for summer camp for those 5 weeks into the park, and they come from all over, so they can come from 910. So I just want to make sure that the traffic, I don't want the traffic to interfere with that. And the other being the kids. We take them all over the park. We try and stay in the area, but we go to the creek often, and we go across into the further end of the park where the well is currently being put. So yeah, those are my 2 concerns. Thank you.
It is you. It is you, I promise, and I won't touch it. I'll do well. Hi, my name is Ariel Zitch. I'm a school director for Fox Chapel Area School District, but I'm not here in that capacity. I don't represent the opinions of the district or of other members of my school board. I'm here as a parent, but also as an educator and someone deeply interested in the long-term economic sustainability of our school district.
Ma'am, can you give us our address?
Yes, 103 Spring Forest Drive. Thank you. We have a great district. I appreciate that the long-term economic viability of this community, Indiana Township in particular, has been addressed in the comments. I appreciate that you listed the number of jobs and business types that are going to be necessarily excluded by rezoning, like the one we're discussing today. That concerns me. It concerns me because it harms our ability to accrue the essential revenue we need to run our schools. You have one of the best school districts in the country. We were just voted the best school district in southwestern Pennsylvania. Our DMS, the school that's adjacent to the region that we're talking about rezoning today, it's a school to watch. It was just awarded one of the best PA schools in the state. Okay, so we don't want to ruin a good thing. What I've seen, and there's data to support this, there's a whole group at Penn State that looks at rapid industrialization and its effects on school communities. Over and over and over again, they've shown that it reduces per pupil income for that school by those school districts by as much as $1,500 per pupil. It also harms graduation rates by attracting low-paying jobs that do not require a degree or even a diploma to work in. It harms resident property values. That's one that I think you're hearing a lot about today. Right now we're talking about resident experiences, but ultimately we're going to be talking about our ability to recruit residents, which is what drives the market value of our homes, okay? When we do something like move an entire area away from the types of things that people want to live near, you grossly undermine and undercut a long-term revenue source for our community and therefore our children. I'm also going to talk about harms to our families. You have a whole bunch of community members here who are concerned about their retirement, their single largest asset, and the value of that asset. They purchased here for the quality of our schools and the value of their home. They may not be able to retire if that home does not retain value. So you're talking about changing a whole bunch of people's retirement plans, and you're also talking about nuisance issues, which, yes, harm the ability of our schools to run programs in these parks. They run them all the time. They're a huge asset and it's a major gift. So I'm excited for my children as future entrepreneurs to be able to access this type of zoning to start their businesses in my own community. I don't want them to have to go other places in Allegheny County. I want them to do it here. I think it's essential that you retain this, like, don't go to light industrial, retain this type of zone, because it's where I want our own community members to attain economic independence, but also pride in their community. Thank you.
Before you start, sir, is there anyone else who plans on speaking tonight? Someone raise their hand?
Does anyone else want to speak tonight?
You're gonna be our last.
You're gonna wear around?
You'll be the last one.
Yeah, mine will be brief. I did prepare some comments, but I think I'll need to save those. I just have a request for the Planning Commission. You've asked for the information we provided to you, and I'm hoping you're gonna vote to table this tonight and allow for more time for evaluation. I'd respectfully request that you make any available information provided by the developer made available electronically to anybody that wants it. The gentleman here said he just came out of the hospital and made his way here tonight to be here for this meeting for this purpose. I think that it's only right and just to make the information available electronically so people don't have to come physically down to the township building to get that information. I will say that I realize that you can't make a decision based upon whether or not this site is going to be used for fracking or not. I feel the developer has inextricably connected the two before you. If it weren't for other members of our community who alerted us to this, this could have flown completely under the radar. And that's more troubling than anything else that you've discussed tonight so far, is that this could have gone sailing through. And sir, I appreciate your due diligence and your thought into giving this some due course and some due consideration, because this isn't something you should take lightly. We've heard a lot about optics and what people will see. There's a lot of risks associated with this kind of work that you cannot see, that end up in the air and end up in the water. So whatever decision you make, even though you may need to make it on a limited basis, and I appreciate your role may be limited by law, you're still human beings and you can take that into account in your decision making. And I implore you to think about that. Thank you.
Sir, what was your name again?
I'm sorry, Ryan Merritt, 512 Sandra Lane.
Thank you. Our final
Just very quickly. Hi, Beth Bookmere, 110 Deer Run Lane. It's also in the Walnut Woods neighborhood. I think all of my neighbors have made great points. The only thing I would add, and it's a build on what Brian Merritt just said in terms of this, the attorney for the developer inextricably linking the two things, the zoning decision with the planned use. I'm appreciative that you're pumping the brakes and slowing this down, because I'm discouraged that I also heard Mr. Kurtai, I think also in the last meeting inextricably linked the two. A lot of what he said in that meeting on April 24th specifically referred to his direction to find another property. The property under question right now, the rezoning of it, was a suggestion by him for the purpose of finding a different spot for that well pad. So that consideration was not about the rezoning of the property. It had everything to do with engaging with this developer, coordinating with the developer to find a new location. So, not only has the developer and their attorney linked these two, but I'm concerned that an employee of the township is doing the same, and I'm grateful that many of you are not heeding that, and just ask that continue.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor with a second. Comments from any of the board members? All in favor of the motion?
This is the table.
This is the table for 60 days.
Or longer, depending on how long it takes to do this.
Do you really want to leave it open-ended, or do you want to say 60 days, at which point we might forward some recommendation, one way or the other? The board of supervisors, let them take final action.
Dan, can you talk into the mic?
I'm sorry. I thought I was talking loud enough.
Dan, I'm comfortable with the motion being amended to that effect.
Okay. 60 days.
Right, and then Mr. Bloom, you're comfortable with your seconding the revised
I
motion?
am, yeah.
All in favor of the motion, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now, the next order of business is revisions to the PRD section of the Township zoning ordinance. Anybody who plans on leaving, we'll give you a couple minutes to leave the law so we can talk about the zoning. Thank you.
This one is just.
But you know, I mean, this is
Everybody who's leaving, please leave and carry your discussions outside.
Thinks it's new in here.
I've used it more tonight than I've used the last 2 years.
Is it wearing down?
Well, I do remember one meeting about 24 years ago where there was a board of supervisors meeting.
Shows that the alternative they're proposing would provide equal or better results. And number 3, that the waiver is the minimum necessary to provide relief. I don't think we're in any disagreement on those, but I believe Dan Slagle would have put an or in there, and I think an and is really more appropriate. I think it's not an or test, it's an and. You have to show all of those in order to justify a waiver or modification.
And I would agree with that, because I think that all 3 of them are consistent with the law and the required showing for all 3, so I would agree that it should stay in.
Under the statement of objectives, and I may have misinterpreted Dan Taylor's remarks on this one. The statement of objectives are phrased in terms of phrased in terms of striving to meet or encourage to meet. And I believe, Dan Taylor, if I'm understanding you correctly, you would like
I feel
this
it
to
should be required to meet.
be more mandatory.
Otherwise, if you leave it open as strive to meet, then it becomes optional, and we could end up with a PRD that really meets none of the requirements for PRD.
I think if we're tightening this up, I don't have a problem with that.
So explain what the requirements of a PRD are.
Well,
Conserve all the open land, 1 through whatever. That's 1 through 7.
yeah, I think Dan, I would respond this way. If an applicant is coming in to the township requesting to do a development that is different than what an ordinary subdivision development would be, that they be required to show that they are achieving certain goals that the township believes are important. Now, I think it's fair to say to Dan Taylor, to Dan's in the room, that I have seen zoning codes and zoning ordinances that list things of this type, but have some language to the effect that the Board of Supervisors should take all of them into account, that they don't need to be weighed equally, that one can be given greater consideration than another, but they ought to at least be willing to provide a statement as to how they're meeting those objectives.
So, in the original draft, when our solicitor looked at it, Gavin, those were some of the things that he modified as a result of the current court case that the township was engaged in with one of the PRDs. And the problem that, and Irv can probably speak to this better than me, but one of the problems that we ran into, the township ran into with that PRD is that the new judge that reviewed it, what did they do? You were actually at the site, but
I'm not necessarily agreeing with everything you're saying, exactly how you're saying, so I'll let you finish, then I'll address it. It's not that you're saying, I'll let you finish your thought.
yeah, I think what they kind of said is that unless each shall, when you start drawing lines in the sand in this ordinance with very definitive words such as shall or will, that basically it'll shoot down any PRD.
Well, I think, I'm not addressing any court case, right, but any ordinance, how you write it is what it means, right? If you say, just as you were talking about, if you say and, it means all of it, right? If you say shall, it means you have to do it. If it's something, and again, this is up to, the thoughts of the planning commission, right? And but if you want the supervisors to consider certain things and certain criteria and make a determination, that's what you do. But it's really, you want it, no matter what you do, right? You want to be clear on what everybody's supposed to do, so that the ordinance itself is clear and unambiguous, so people know what their standard they're trying to meet, and the supervisors know what standard they're supposed to apply, and the public knows what is expected of both parties.
Let me give you an example. Look at statement objectives, B number 1. Conserve open land, that's very definitive to me. So if there's one mature piece of a tree in the middle of the development, I would read that as you can't develop it because you didn't protect that one tree. That would be the argument that I would make.
I think, Dan, it has to be read in context. It's conservative.
Provide greater flexibility. I would make the case that having, and this is what happened, I think, in this last court case, is that because there wasn't variety, I mean, that's what you get this last one as a result of that. So I'd make the contention that there's no flexibility to this. I don't see it at all. It's all the same house. Look at Blue Run.
I mean, could we say, in order to do so, PRD shall strive to meet the following objectives, comma,
So
any one of which or altogether may be required?
So the version that
By the
I had
supervisors?
I mean, as you get into that kind of language, right, I mean, that was really, is what are you really asking them to do, right? When you're saying, it's, what, you know, is it, like, when you're saying variety of uses, are you saying, variety of uses overall, benefiting, I'm sorry,
Well,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just, I mean, that at least mitigates the argument that, well, you didn't tell us that any of these could be actually required.
Well, that's right, if
By
it's
my language.
Right, if it is required.
You're acknowledging the possibility that
May not.
they may, or that they may be required, and you have to do more than just strive.
Well, I think that's the point. I think if we're gonna make a requirement, it should say what the requirement is, so people know what they have to do. And, is it, what do you mean by require? Or is it just, hey, depending on the land, depending on the circumstances, depending on what it is, you can go either way. I think you have to decide what makes sense and, what you wanna do on it. And if you're trying to avoid ambiguity, right, or take some of that discretion away, then you say either it's a goal but not required, right, so just something to consider, or it's a requirement.
Dan Taylor, we're not proposing a bill, Mr. Mayor.
No.
Could I suggest that on this point, we turn this back to Herb and Gavin and see if they can come up with some language regarding these criteria and.
In the statement of objectives.
Yeah.
And what we want to make it clear for what we do.
Yeah.
We can put there something.
So Gavin did look at this version that he marked up, that I put together. So that's what you have in your packets this evening also. But I mean, and again, when I met with Gavin and Jeff on prior times, is that I think we were all keenly aware of how the judge ruled based on, as Irv said, the way that it was written.
I think, Mr. Slade, I don't think it hurts. It's not getting voted on tonight.
No,
So I think to help, I mean, in fairness, we have a few new board members relative to the last time this has been discussed and these things been through. I'm happy to prepare something so they can, review it and have time to think about it, not catch it on the fly tonight. Right. Review it ahead of the next meeting, we'll try to get it out.
Fine with me.
I agree. And just for the group's information too, is that I'm amiss that I did not take a harder look at providing some type of bonus analysis and or reevaluating the density a little bit keener based on some of the additional information I didn't get. So I owe you a couple things.
Dan Taylor, would you like to continue? Okay, on continuing still with section 400B, there was a statement before that one of the criteria was to protect areas of the township with productive agricultural soils. That was stricken at one point, but I had a note from Dan Taylor that he would like to reinsert that provision.
Yeah, I've kind of changed my mind on that a little bit. I thought about it. And the only one I have a strong feeling for is item number 10 that was stricken.
Okay. Moving down to permitted uses, and this is one I caught the last time I went through this. The permitted uses, I think historically have, for PRDs, have included multifamily dwellings. We have received some public commentary that multifamily dwellings are not appreciated in the township, per se. I think part of the problem with the PRD that's in litigation is that they are proposing what amounts to an apartment building. I'm not taking a stand one way or the other because that was before my time, but I thought in response to the public comments, instead of multifamily dwellings, we could change that and still kind of keep the spirit of what people were expecting to quads and townhouses, which are defined dwelling types in the ordinance right now. That's the reason for that change. I'm going to skip over some of the smaller ones.
Excuse me.
Sure.
Can I make a little quick, from a real estate point of view, first we were doing quads, but now we're only doing twos. I mean, very few quads are being built because there are 4 families versus only 2 families. And a number of those homes are very expensive and they do not look like duplexes. That's all.
And I think the only reason why multifamily is in there is because the people that build houses are very creative. And to have an ordinance that has enough vagueness that if some developer creates some new mini house, or whatever they come up with, it would fall under that one category, although I'm not sure if there's a definition for it. That was the only reason why that was in there.
Well, I think limiting the uses to ones that are already defined in the zoning ordinance makes sense. You know, if somebody wants to try to be creative, I'm talking to supervisors. I guess would be my response. Let's see.
Okay, Kevin, before you leave that, the only comment I had was on the last sentence where we talk about facilities are intended for the use of the resident owners,
Yes, I'm
tenants, and
sorry.
guests only.
Thank you, Dan.
And the only thing about that is further on, we talk about dedicating the open space to the township, which at that point, it's now open to any township resident to use. So it's kind of in conflict. And really, the only thing that's in conflict is open spaces. Okay, you know, if you have swimming pools and putting greens and stuff, that can be limited to the residents if it's not dedicated to the township.
So what Gavin had added in this other one here, it says, and by only the owners, tenants, and guests of the properties located in the community, is what he added in.
I'm saying later on, we talk about dedicating the park to the township, which means it's open to any township residents. We can't say we, people that's developing can use it.
That's where I would prefer to read it, yeah.
Okay. Just trying to see where there's items worth discussing. Probably back, table 4A, the densities. This is likely where we.
That's certainly worth discussing.
Yeah. So, the way, just so everybody understands, fellow commissioners understand, the numbers that are in italics are the ones suggested by Dan Taylor. As is the suggestion regarding bonus density, as well as the limitation on any one dwelling type not exceeding 25% of the total dwelling units except for single-family dwellings. I guess I'll just open it up for discussion in terms of what people think about densities and the numbers.
Yeah, where I started with this was saying, basically, in a PRD, they would not be allowed to have any more dwelling units than they would if it was a straight development. So that's where those numbers come from. What you did mention was, in addition, I put a minimum square footage into those.
Right, I missed that.
Those
Sorry.
plans, yeah, because we don't want someone coming in and maybe doing a PRD that has tiny houses, you know, the 400 square foot houses in a PRD, because that totally does not fit anywhere within Indiana Township. basing this just on kind of a grab, and what we might have more expertise down at the other end of the table here?
But Dan, your number, your suggested numbers here, I mean, essentially then, a given development site would not be able to have any more homes than it would have had as a conventional site.
Right, because the purpose of the PRD is to have a smaller footprint on the property rather than, a standard development.
Yeah, and Dan, just to be clear, so I may have done, I was trying to do this in a shorthand, I may have shortened it too much. For example, under RE, where I put in an italics 0.5, that was your density number, and the 3,000 after that was supposed to be the square foot.
Square footage
Yeah,
each unit.
yeah.
Right. And that basically lines up with the standard development allowed dwelling units. Okay, but then we could allow additional bonus if they do something. And I just thought about, we'll keep increasing the open space. There could be other things we might want to add in there to say they could get it bonus units if they do this or that.
And even with these reduced numbers, the developer still has the option to reduce the size of individual lots and reserve less land, right?
Because we're not looking at minimum lot sizes.
Yeah,
We're just dealing with setbacks.
right.
I'm personally okay, Dan, with your suggestions, particularly the one that's, maybe we need to think about how it's phrased, but bonus densities, allowing for increases, I think that's actually what the purpose of the PRD is. So
You might also want to think about, well, if they did put in things like swimming pools or putting greens, maybe we might allow some bonus dwelling units if they did that, or playgrounds, whatever.
Dan, did you also add the sentence here, no dwelling unit type can exceed 25% of the
Right.
total dwelling units?
Yeah, Kevin mentioned that.
Yes, Kevin, that's right. I mean, I would agree with that.
Right, because we don't want a developer coming in and sell townhouses.
Yeah.
Right.
On the next page, again, the italicized bulk and area requirements are Dan Taylor's suggestions, and I think, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're basically, you wanted to see some uniformity across the board with those?
Setbacks, especially the front setback, shouldn't be dependent on the type of dwelling it is. I mean, you don't want it to look like a checkerboard going down the street as houses go in and out. Just that. And also, in the LDR, multiple family dwellings, that's not allowed because we don't have that in table 4A.
Right. Okay.
State. These are a little less than what would be the setbacks required if it's a standard development, so it does allow a little closer spacing. And the only comment would be the, up in the above in the first paragraph, where we talk about if a PRD is an extension of an existing plan, that the setbacks have to kind of taper. I'm thinking of your situation in your development there, where you don't want to come to the street. This is only on through streets. Like if the street continues, the houses at the beginning of the PRD would have the same setbacks as the houses in the standard development or PRD it's coming off of. Then over 500 feet, I think it was 500 feet, 300 feet, it would taper to where they could come in closer. Of course, any cross streets, they'd be going just like.
Dan, I don't know if you remember, but in Heartwood Meadows, phase 4 and 5, that's what we required.
Right. But
We requested, it wasn't required.
I'm putting it,
It was not required, but the developer
we're
made
putting
that.
it in as
They
a,
made a
we're
suggestion.
putting it in as a requirement, just to clarify things.
Right, now we'll put it in the
We want the developers to be aware of that up front.
And that was a concern.
That's a great idea.
But we asked them to do, I talked to Jeff, and Jeff asked them to do that, and they did. Though it stepped down rather quickly. So we have, the first lot was at the current setback, which was like 40 feet, and then they did one at 32 feet, and then they went down to 25 feet. So within,
I'm saying 300,
300
over
feet.
300 feet,
Yeah.
so
Yes.
300 feet on each side of the road would slowly taper in.
which is great. In Harvard Meadows, there would have been no taper, or virtually not, right, because you run out of cul-de-sac in some cases.
Excuse me, can I, are we talking about 25 feet in addition to where you're in the middle of the road and you come over, Township has 50 feet and 25 on either side? Yeah.
It's 20 feet from the edge of the right of way, so, you know, standard
Yeah.
road's 50 feet wide, so they,
Yeah.
not from the middle of the road, just from.
Yeah, from where that
Right.
mark is.
Okay, common open space,
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Just
Go ahead,
before we
Jeff.
move off of that, and I've been thinking about this because I've had a struggle with this in the past. On the section of quads and townhouses, I wanna put its own bracket in there talking about all interior walls. And when I say interior walls, when you're dealing with a townhouse type unit, you might have 6 units and they all have their property line. I'd like to see a 2-foot setback built in to that for like decks in the rear, because I'm having a lot of issues with that. I really, now whether it's 2 foot or a foot, that's up to you to decide, but my suggestion would be like a 2-foot offset, because they don't have to follow any lines. And that's never been discussed.
So if you have a deck in the back, it can't go wall to wall, it has to be
If
inside.
it's a 24-foot unit, they can put a 24-foot wall right now,
Okay.
because they never meet the current setbacks, only the end units would.
Right.
So I think we need to build something in there, say, this is what it's going to be, and protect it. Do you agree with that?
I think isn't there a place further on where we talk about things like chimneys that can extend into the setback? We should probably put decks, oh wait, I know,
Well,
I think
no,
it's
this is a little different.
It's going in the other direction.
Yeah, it's a little different.
Yeah, I'm thinking that,
No, it's okay.
backwards. That's a good point.
So again, something for discussion in terms of the planning commission's sense. Every draft I've seen has had common open space at 20% factor, except Dan Taylor thinks it should be 30.
I think most of our surrounding communities have 30%, so that's where I'm taking that from.
So you're gonna have no backyards. I understand where you're going, but, so I guess everybody gets the plan in front.
Well, this isn't describing the buffer area, it's describing it's describing common open space.
Yeah, can you explain that?
Are you talking about the front yard setbacks?
No.
No, the common
No,
open
see.
space going from 20 to 30%.
You wanna go from 20 to 30?
You're saying that needs no backyards?
Oh, as far as common open space goes? I understand where it's gonna go. So let's move that to 30%, and you subtract that from your 10 acres, which starts you off at 7, and then you apply the densities from the chart. There's this sliding scale between those two. As you increase one, you should decrease the other. So if you're going to go from 20 to 30% on the open space part, then you should allow an increase in density. That's my point. If you want less open space, then, and I think that's where I was thinking, at least with the bonus criteria, that if you provide 30% open space, we're gonna give you this on the bonus. That's what I would structure. So what as the developer offers 30%, let's just say you have this really bastard, ugly piece of property, that the open space that you're gonna donate to the HOA or the township, he can get a little bit more density in the very small part that he has left.
I mean, we could change that open space and, like you say, if they offer them, I started at 30%, I started at 20% offer from there. I wouldn't have a strong opinion against that. One thing I would request, could we maybe wrap this up by 8:30?
Yeah.
My wife's a little bit under the weather and I should get home.
then let me just, let me make this last point then. Strictly speaking, it's not just 30% of the lot is automatically common open space. That 30% has to be calculated, the way this is now drafted, by taking out half of the buffer areas to come up with the acreage. Taking out in its entirety stormwater basins, streets, sidewalks, easements for public utilities, floodplains and regulated wetlands, steep slopes that are not permitted to be disturbed. I want to revisit this one because I'm concerned that we don't really have a steep slope ordinance in the township anymore, and landslide prone areas. So that's probably a good place to break, Dan. That's how you calculate your 20 or 30%. You have to look at your property, see how those features add up, and then do the math.
That'd be a good place to drop it and come back next month and continue from there. And it also gives time to look at this. I like the footnote where you did this. It says these are where we want to put changes in. Had one suggested. Come back and just each member go through the footnotes and say, I like that, or no, I disagree with that. So kind of firm it up next month. Okay.
Move to adjourn?
Anybody, somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
I have a question, and it's more like procedural. Is it possible when you're doing these to put, these are all electronic, can you put it up on the screen so we can see it, so we can kind of like
I've
follow?
asked that question.
I mean, it's up to you all. So,
Well, I think until we get a finalized document, we don't.
I mean,
want
just
to
so we can
put it up
follow
as
what
people
you're
might
reading.
gravitate and say, oh, I saw that, now you guys are getting rid of that. even though
I just mean like in the meeting so we can follow along, we're kind of like curious, oh, what's the italics? Well, I don't know, so I don't see italics, right? Is that possible?
I'll ask.
I understand that.
But I mean, the decision's up to you guys.
Well, the risk of it was, and the reason that there was, that you're not getting drafts of documents every time is that because historically, right, there were issues where people had old drafts of documents and it was misinformation and those type of things. And then as it got reassembled, people would, no, here's, draft page, whatever, that you changed, and it became a thing. And obviously by putting it on the screen in today's world, people can, snapshot it or screenshot it, you're back to the same spot, so.
We don't want to be committed.
On the other hand, if we're talking about a document tonight and people in the audience, I don't really have a problem with them looking at what we're talking about. Stamp draft on it, here on the screen, show it that way.
I mean,
I
you
do
could put
agree we
red
don't want to
draft
circulate
across the-
things, but if people want to look at what we're talking about.
Well, there's not a legal impediment to it, that was some of the current concerns that people had before. There may be a technical component that I'm not aware of. And like, for example, tonight, right, you got revised, corrected copies a minute before the meeting. There didn't, no way to put that on in some type of presentation. So, there's an element of, as people come to the meeting, not as formal as the supervisor's meeting, people come to the meeting with comments and ideas, I'm not positive we'd be able to, like, for example, that wouldn't have solved anybody's problem tonight. But again, it's up to the, board, we can, board on how to proceed.
Okay.
I'm not asking for a presentation, literally just the file being screencast up, whatever you're looking at, but, I know you just said presentation, Mr.
No, I
President.
just, again, for example, there was there were comments made to tonight's, the comments made to the
Mhm.
that final version wasn't delivered in a form that anybody saw. They'd seen drafts and different things, but in
Right.
a form that they were talking about until, tonight.
But
So-
it was on a digital file
No,
somewhere.
it wasn't. It was printed by somebody that brought it to the
I had printed it.
Right. So.
Right, but you still had at some point, it was on a digital file, do you know what I mean? Like, just throw it up on the screen. It's possible.
Well, really, until we reach agreement on this board, there's no real document yet. When we agree to it and say, send to the supervisors, they will put it out on the on the website prior to any kind of public hearing on it. Which point, but at that point, you now have a finished document.
I'm just literally hoping to follow
Before you actually
along.
vote on the final thing you recommended, you will have a copy of that. You know, that's something everybody will be, once in the final version, it's gonna be prepared to be voted on, people are gonna see that.
I'm concerned a little bit, if you concentrate on this paragraph, you're missing the big picture of how that fits into the whole scheme of things, and, you know, that could mislead people.
My suggestion, based on, I guess, the now two if not three versions that I see before me, it may be a good idea to have like a workshop meeting at Jeff's table, just to kind of get some of these things all ironed out, so we're all playing with like one document.
I think this should be the document that we work on right here.
Kevin's document?
Kevin's document?
Yeah.
And that's what we all agreed to last, or 2 months ago, to work off Kevin's, and I agree with that.
Yeah, but use that and no more changes till we have our next meeting.
I don't think there's any disagreement with that.
Because I was getting a little bit confused, because I was using that document that was passed, I think you passed it out at the last meeting, it's dated 4/24/2024. And I'm making my comments relative to that, and I see a comment thing from Kevin, and it's different. My comments may or may not apply anything longer.
I agree.
So this way we know what our document is. We have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
In favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, everybody. Hope to see you all next month. Not
One way or the other.
Yeah.